Hello, Days of Our Lives fans. Welcome to the week of Monday, October the 2nd to Friday, October 6th, which is today. All kinds of things going on this week. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't. We're going to be giving away Roku's, the ones you plug into TVs for, those people that got left with nothing when Peacock switched over. But you have to be a subscriber to be allowed to be in that drawing. So, anyway, there's that. Let's get to the show. Days of Our Lives. What's popping this week in Salem? Everything. Lots of people coming and going. And we're going to get right on it. Okay, so Monday, we start back up where Dimitri is holding the gun. He's got a gun on Gabby and Stefan. And luckily for them, Vivian happens to walk in and she shoots Dimitri in the back. So, I can remember most of this. So she shoots him in the back. He goes down. What happened was earlier, just before that, and this had happened on Friday, Kristen had a gun on Dimitri and she was threatening to kill him if he didn't give her some of his money. All these people think they deserve this man's money. Anyway, Kristen couldn't do it. So Dimitri already had that gun in his hand, and Gabby and Stefan come downstairs and they're going to continue their whole little deal of how they're, blackmailing him and stuff, and they want his money, they want his shares, all this to keep their mouths shut about Leo and using Gwen and all that. So, he's just had it. He already wanted to kill him, and Leo talked him out of it, thank God. So, but he snapped, he whipped out the gun, and, he was getting ready to shoot them, and Vivian, of course, just happened to walk in, and she shot him in the back. So he crawls over. He's not dead. He's barely wallowing around and moving around. And they tell him they're going to let him bleed out and die unless he signs over his shares of Demera. Him and Megan's shares of Demera. So he says, fine, get my briefcase. Gabby gets it. They have him sign it. Bam, they got his shares, or so they think. I don't know. Seems to me like Dimitri and Megan are a little bit too smart for these kind of shenanigans that Gabby and Stefan are trying to pull. No, I do not know what they are up to. I mean, they're Demaras. They have money. But they want to take everybody else's. They just don't have enough, I guess. So then they decide, Stefan says, well, after he signed them, Gabby's like, fine, let him die. Gabby's heartless. Oh, I'm going to miss her so much. I love Gabby. She's the best dressed. They dress her better than anybody on the show. Anyway, Stefan says, no, nephew, don't you worry. I'm gonna keep my word, and I'm gonna call an ambulance for you. So he's calling the ambulance, and they're talking about, Salem's finest should be showing up here any time. And Vivian's like, well, what are we going to tell him? What are we going to tell him happened? And, Gabby's like, I don't know. How about the truth? And she's like, wait, I remind you that I just got out of prison. And she's like, you can't go to prison. He was getting ready to kill us. You came in and you saved us. So, you're not going to go to jail. And she said, but one of my rules for parole, is that I cannot be near a firearm, much less possess one or use one. And Gabby's like, well, what are you doing with the gun then? And she said, for protection. What else? And thank God she had a gun, or they'd both be dead right now. So, that's all going on. So they decide, Stefan says, look, I'm going to save my mother, because she's like, I saved y'all's lives. Can you not help me? So he said, I saved my mother, Gabby. I'm going to save her. We'll just make something up. And sure enough, when Jada and Sean got there, that's what they said. They said that Gabby and Stefan said they came downstairs and they didn't know who had shot him. He was already shot in the floor, when they found him. So, that's the story they're telling. Gabby was not comfortable with telling it. But, Stefan just kept looking at her. She's my mother. Gabby, she's not very familiar, with her family, only her own. That's kind of selfish of her. She should think about, what Stefan's mother means to her, regardless of what kind of person she is. Okay, let me see what kind of notes I got here. Yeah, they made up a whole little deal there. Okay, since Talia slept with Sean D last week, and she did, and she goes in and tells Marlena, of course, she's now a doctor at the hospital. A bunch of people pulled strings and let things slide because, she was operating under the abuse of that nutbag Colin, Sloane's brother. And I love Sloane, but her brother, he's a nut job. So, Talia's trying to tell Marlena, I was thinking maybe I need to get another therapist. And Marlena's like, well, why? Is it because we work together now? We're colleagues? And she's like, well, I might as well tell you, I see several people who work here, and it's not been a problem. And she said, yeah, that's it. And Marlena reminded her, you've only got like 2 sessions left with me, court ordered. I don't know how the court's going to look on you changing in just the last minute. At the last minute like that. So Talia said, okay, so maybe I'll just keep these last 2 sessions with you and wrap it up. And Marlena says, well, I'm free now. You want to have a session now? So she sits down and, Marlena's like, so how's things going? You were real excited last week. Are things going pretty good? She said, how's it going with Chanel? And she sat there and she said, it's not. Chanel broke up with me. I don't know if she told her it was for her grandson or not, but she might have. She told somebody that, but I'm not sure if it was Marlena. I think it was. And Marlena said, oh, I'm sorry, Talia. And she said, yeah, I took it hard. It hit me bad. I went out and I got wasted. I got drunk. And she said, oh, I see. And she said, well, hopefully you didn't make any bad decisions while you were under the influence. And she's like, oh, too late for that. So she tells Marlena that she slept with a married man. He was having a bad night. She was having a bad night. They started drinking. They got kicked out of the pub. And they took it up to her room. And one thing led to another. And they ended up in bed. And Marlena's like, how did one thing lead to another? So she asked some silly question like that. I don't know. Okay, so she ends up telling her all that. Let's see. Now later on, she was in there still talking to Marlena, and Belle came in, and Belle's like, oh, I'm sorry, I could come back. And Talia's like, oh, no, that's fine, Miss Brady, I'm finished. And she left, and Marlena's like, I was going to call you, is everything okay? And she said, she started telling Marlena her story about how she was just worried sick all night because Sean didn't come home. And she's like, oh, and she said, turns out, he got drunk and just passed out. And she's like, oh, okay. And she said, yeah, turns out he got drunk at the pub and he ended up sleeping it off up in Jada's apartment. Jada and Talia were both at work. And he didn't come home till this morning. They said he could stay there. Jada let him stay there and sleep it off. And you should have seen Marlena's face because she's already putting 2 and 2 together because she just talked to Talia and she told her she met somebody at the pub. They got drunk and took it upstairs. So Marlena's like, well, I would be watching that and this and that. And she's like, oh no, Mom, things are going good. We went to a AA meeting together. Poor Belle. Poor Belle. Anyway, Marlena knows, of course. So what's she going to do, right? So Rafe and Jada are in London. They're trying to track down Susan and Harris, of course, who went to London because they believe that Ava and Harris went to London because they believe that Susan is there, and she is indeed. We get our girl back this week. I am so excited. She is my absolute favorite character. He's mean, mean, mean. Oh, I just love her. I love her to death. Anyway, Jada's back, and we move on to Tuesday. So her and Sean are having a few words, and Jada feels like she just has to say something to Sean about sleeping with her sister. So they had some words about it earlier in their shift, and then later in the day, he's like, look, are you sure we're going to be okay? I'm sorry, I'm working things out with Belle. And Jada's like, so I assume you're not going to tell Belle? And he's like, no, I just don't want to hurt her. And he's like, I hate to ask you this. And that's when Jada said, you don't have to worry, I'll keep your secret. I'm not going to tell anybody that you slept with my sister. But of course, it was at that moment that you've probably all seen advertised when the camera zooms in, and of course Belle was standing behind her and overheard that, and that's what she said. You just did. Bam! You got it, Sean D. This just started a roller coaster of emotions for Belle. And I have to say, Martha Madison did such a good job. She was bawling. She was so hurt. She was really crying. So, it was sad. It was pissing me off at Sean. And they got into it, and she bolted out of there. Okay, so meanwhile, back at the ranch, Rafe is still hanging around the hotel room because Susan and Harris's passports are in the hotel room, but him and Jada stayed there at least a day, and they didn't come back. So he sent Jada back to oversee things at the station, and he's going to stay there till they come back. Well, then he hears a little wrestling at the door, and in comes Tripp. He's got a key. And Rafe's all bent out of shape. What the hell are you doing? And he's like, I'm here looking for my mom. I'm worried about my mom. So then Rafe gets a phone call, and he's getting ready to take out. And Tripp's like, I'm going to go with you. And he's like, no, that's not a good idea. And he said, I know my mom better than anybody, and I want to go, and I can help. And he said, all right, well, it turns out your mom and Harris was spotted at a cafe downstairs or something. So they go there, and they talk to the waiter that waited on them. And the waiter told them that they did use his phone because they wanted to look up somebody's address, and Rafe took the phone and looked it up, and it was Edmund's name and address, and he is Susan's ex-husband. So they head over there. Let me see if that all happens on Tuesday. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, of course, at Edmund's, he has Ava and Harris chained up there because they did go there looking for Susan, and he drugged them and chained them up in the bedroom, and that's where they found out Susan had been chained up too. Apparently, some mysterious man called him and brought her to him, found her outside the wreck because whoever it was didn't think she was safe back in Salem. And he took care of her and nursed her back to health, and then he chained her up to keep her there because she wanted to go back she's married to someone else now. But he was still in love with her. So he took care of her, and he's not going to let her go because he loves her. That's what's going on there. Ava, Susan, and Harris are trying to figure out a plan, and while they are there doing that, Rafe and Tripp have arrived at Edmund's apartment, and they're just talking to him, and he says, I'm Commissioner Hernandez from Salem PD, and he's like, Salem? That's where my ex-wife lived. She passed away there, sadly. And he said, yeah, that's why we're here. And he told them that, Ava, the woman that had killed her, had broken out of the mental institution, and her and Harris were headed there to his address. And he said, "Oh, I haven't seen him, but if I see him, I'll let you know." So Rafe says, "Well, do you care if we have a look around?" And, Rafe and Trip starts kind of nosing around. And Edmund whips out a gun and said, "Actually, I do." And he's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, Edmund, what kind of problem we got here? What's happening?" And he said, "Well, if I were to let you look around, you're surely going to find my guests, and I can't have that." So when he finds out Trip is Ava's son, he decides he's going to shoot Trip to punish Ava, and then to kill Ava for everything they did to Susan. Well, meanwhile, the other three are panicking, trying to get unchained, figure a way out of there. And Susan says, "Well, let's just pray." And Ava's like, "Prayer, that's your answer?" So they prayed, and while Harris was trying to pull on the chain, and the chain broke. So Harris got out and ran into the living room, or somehow went around and come in the door behind Edmund and wrestled with him to get the gun out of his hands. So they got the gun from Edmund, and Trip went back and with Harris, and they got everybody unchained, and they're packing everybody back home to Salem. It was just wonderful to see Susan. I love her so much. Let's see. What else did I write down? Rafe and Trip confront Edmund. Yeah, and he pulls the gun on them. That is still Tuesday. Now we go to Wednesday. Okay, so EJ hires an affiliate of the woman he had hired to kill Ava to go finish Xander off now. So he sends him out on his way, and they're going to frame Rex for it. So they send Rex a text and all that. Chloe ends up moving out of Xander's apartment. She breaks up with him. He tells her, "But my love, what are you doing? I want you to be right by my side as I raise my daughter." And she told him she just can't do it. Things have changed. And she said, "I thought you might want to try to work things out with Sarah." And he said, "No, I want to be with you." And she said her feelings have changed since she found out about Victoria. So it was sad a little bit. It was sad for Xander. But maybe Xander and Sarah will get back together, especially in the light that Susan's not dead. Chloe breaks up with Xander, and Chloe is going to go back to New York where her son and her mother is. So she's busy saying her goodbyes. Susan prays the chains off, so that I already said with that. Yep. Okay, so EJ just sent the guy off to kill Xander. He's walking around his living room and turns around, and who's standing there? Somebody he thought he'd never see in his living room again. But it is our beloved Ava Vitale. And he's like, "Ava, I thought you were on the run. What are you doing here?" And she's like, "Well, she says, I know you sent that woman to kill me in Bellevue." And he didn't say a word. She said, "I've come here to end this, EJ. Once and for all, I'm going to end this." And he said, "End it how?" And she said, "Well, see for yourself." And he turned around, and Harris walked in, and in walked Susan. And it was just a precious reunion between EJ and Susan. And I have to say, I forget his name that plays EJ. He did an amazing job in playing the grief-stricken son when Susan died. He went to hell and back, man. He did a great job. And it was just an equally touching moment when she's, hugging him and, "Are you all right? What happened?" And blah, blah, blah. And everyone keeps mentioning this person that saved her, and nobody can figure out who it is. It will be interesting to find that out, if we ever do. So, anyway, Harris and Ava have a plan. Harris is going to wear wire, and did wear wire, and they were hoping to trick EJ into admitting that he sent someone to kill her so he could be put in jail. You know, I hate that they were trying to do this to EJ when, you know, they needed to just let bygones be bygones and everybody let everything go. But anyway, you know, she was saying, well, Susan, I'm glad I could reunite with your son. Can you get him to call off his goons and this and that? And she's like, Elvis, you're my son, and I want you to listen to your mama right now. Now I want you to beg Ava there to forgive you. And I want you to confess your sons right now, son, right now, right here in front of everybody. You know, and she's like, I'm okay now. I'm okay, and there's no reason to have revenge. And then it dawned on EJ's head. I thought, don't say it. Don't say it, EJ. They're recording you. And it just dawned on him, oh my God, that guy was on his way to murder Xander. And his mother was not even dead. So he's like, I gotta go. I got an emergency business meeting. And he bolted out of there. He did indeed. So, we're in Thursday already. Okay, so EJ rushes over, and the guy had dressed up like a repairman to work on the gas line. And Xander, he had also sent Rex a message to come over and talk to him. And then they get over there and they start talking to each other, getting in a little bit of an argument. Xander turns around and to open the door to let him out, and the guy knocks Rex in the head, and he falls on the floor, and he's standing there with the gun, tells him he's there to kill him. So Xander's trying to talk to him. Well, I've got money. And he's like, I don't need your money, man. It's my job, and I love it. I'm a killer. So, okay. So he's like, so someone hired you. Well, I bet I know exactly who it was. And just at that minute, EJ busted in the door and said, don't shoot. And he had a little trouble convincing the guy to not shoot Xander. I'm sorry, I was dry bad. So he told him, you know, you work for me, I hired you, I'll still pay you. And he's like, he's done seen my face. And Xander's like, it's not a problem, man, you know, I'm bad with faces. So the guy hightails it out of there. And Xander's like, well, thanks for stopping it. What made you have a change of mind? And EJ said, the circumstances have changed. And he said, how's that? And he said, my mother's alive. And, you know, Xander was relieved. And he's like, oh, okay. So he gets on the phone. And EJ's like, who you calling? He said, the police. I'm sure Rafe would love to know that you hired someone to put a bullet in me. And EJ said, well, you know, the only reason you're not rotting in jail for kidnapping my mother is there were no witnesses to put you in jail. Bonnie didn't see your face, but my mother did. And he's like, what? And he said, yeah, he said, but, you know, I could persuade her to not press charges. But if you put me in jail, there's no way she's going to press charges. And it's my understanding you're a father now. You really want to have visits from your daughter in the penitentiary? You'll have a room right next to me. And then he said, you win, counselor. And he slammed his phone. And he's like, yeah, I'll just say this. I'll lie to Rex when he wakes up, and we're all good. So EJ left to go back home to the aroma of fried bologna sandwiches and mayonnaise. His mama. Let's see. Alright, so Kate goes to visit Sarah, and she goes off on her. Like, why are you putting my son dragging him in this mess to protect you from Xander? And she's like, I had to protect my daughter, my child. And she's like, so you just put my child up and put a target on his back? she really had an effect on Sarah. She did indeed, because when Rex got back home and he was trying to tell Sarah what just had happened to him at Xander's, she told him she wants a divorce. So Kate made a big impression on Sarah. So here we've got the comings and goings. I forgot what I was going to say. Shoot. Oh, okay. So, of course, Rex is leaving the show. Thank God, I've never liked him. And, Chloe, she's going around saying her goodbyes, and she goes to say, goodbye to Philip, and, and he's telling her he understands she has to leave and stuff. And he's like, well, don't be a stranger. And they hug and stuff. And he was getting ready to walk away. And she said, Philip, I wonder if you might want to come to New York. And because he was going to restart his life. And she's like, I can't make you any promises. But we both know we still have feelings for each other. And, it'd be great if you were there. So, hell yeah. Philip and Chloe are going to be together. And, of course, they are both going off the show. This Philip was only back temporarily for Victor's funeral, and he needed to get things right with Chloe. That's been hanging in the balance for a long time. So there we've got Philip and Chloe. They are leaving the show, and then we've got some others that we're going to talk about for Friday, October 6th, which was today. Oh my God, I've already been going 26 minutes. Okay, so Kristen, Leo, and Gwen are all at the hospital. Dimitri is in surgery. After she has her words, and she was just so hurt, as you can imagine. But I hate Gwen so much. I enjoy her pain. No, I don't really. Even the people you don't like, when they get hurt and stuff, it's still, it makes you a little bit sad for them. Anyway, she realizes that Leo and Dimitri both love each other a lot, and it just hurts her really bad. Well, she already got his money out of the bank, so they're going to be broke. So, anyway, she goes in to visit him after he gets out of his coma, and she's talking to him when he gets consciousness, and he does not realize that she knows his jig is up. She knows how he was using her. She knows he was sleeping with her best friend, Matty. So, she's got a scalpel in her hand. And it looks like, and as she's talking to him, reminding him and letting him know she knows all this, he said, it was a horrible thing of me to do. I'm so sorry, Gwen. Blah, 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 blah. And she's got a scalpel, and she, sticks it in his, it looks like she sticks it in his leg. She at least presses it on him. She said, yes, apparently, Matty, in your magic penis. And she said, I wonder how I would like you if you looked a little differently. And she's raising up the cover, looking at him. He's like, no. And she goes under there with the scalpel, man, like she's just going to chop him up. And let's not forget, she murdered her sister Abigail. I don't care what the writers say. I don't care what anybody says. She murdered Abigail. And I've never forgiven her for it. And I won't forgive her for it when she comes back as somebody else. No. Be gone, girl. So, Leo rushes in and stops her and saves her, and he's telling Gwenny, this isn't the kind of person you are. You're loving and caring. It breaks my heart to see you like this. Leo's really been coming with some heart stoppers here this week, dealing with Gwen and Dimitri. That little love triangle. Okay, so Gabby is getting ready to go to a meeting, her and Stefan, at Demera Enterprises. And, of course, Vivian's staying with them because since Maggie ousted her, she's broke, homeless, and, she's going to stay with my beloved son. And she's talking to Gabby and asking Gabby where she's going, and we've got an important meeting at Demera. And she's like, and that's what you're wearing? And she's like, you don't get this. She said, we are running Demera. Because she said she wanted to go too. And she's like, I need to know what's going on. She said, no, you don't. And since you're my daughter-in-law, I'm going to give you a piece of friendly mother-in-law advice. And she's like, well, this ought to be good. And she said, stay out of my way. And Gabby turns. So then Jada, Vivian and Gabby are a little bit threatening each other. Meanwhile, downstairs, Jada has come over to talk to Stefan. And he's like, I assume you're here about more questions about the shooting. And she's like, yeah, things just don't add up. And he said, well, why not? And she said, well, the bullets that they pulled out of Dimitri don't match the gun that we found. And she said the only prints on it were Kristen's. And he said, well, there you have it. Kristen shot Dimitri. And she said, yeah, except she didn't. And they were getting into it, and she was telling Stefan that he was lying to the police and covering something up, so she's threatening to take him in. Well, Gabby runs downstairs, and she runs in there and tells Jada the person that shot Dimitri was Vivian Alamein, and here's the gun, and it was in a bag. And Stefan he's just floored, and she said, I'm sorry, Stefan, but I choose you over her. I'm not going to let you go to jail over something that she did. So Jada got the skinny on it. She told Vivian that she was going to report that she had a firearm to her parole officer. So Vivian decides she is going to have to leave Salem and go back to Almania or something like that. So Vivian's going on the lam, on the run. Jada questions Stefan. I already said that. So when Gabby and Stefan tell him the truth about what happened, and of course Vivian did confirm it that he was trying to shoot them, she went to the hospital to arrest Dimitri. So meanwhile, Kristen gets off the elevator and comes over talking to Gwen and saying, I got your message, but I didn't shoot Dimitri. And she's like, well, if you didn't and I didn't, who did? And Jada walked up and said, Vivian Alamein did. So anyway, she told her, I'm on my way to arrest your husband, because apparently he was trying to kill Gabby and Stefan. Meanwhile, Leo and Dimitri are loving it up in their little room in there. And she goes to arrest him. So Dimitri is going off the show. He's another coming or going. And so is Gwen, And so she's talking to Kristen, and Kristen said, well, you should talk to the von Loschners, because you can't help it that your husband did this. You're the wife. You should still continue getting all the money. So it seems like, and this just didn't make sense to me from what I gather, she's packing up and she's moving out of Salem and going to go to Alamania or wherever the von Loschners are to talk to them and live there, I guess, and live off their money and be wealthy for the rest of her life. That's the impression I got, because she said her goodbye at the end. At the end, she said, and this is how the show went off. It went off for Friday with, she's like, Salem, don't think you've seen the last of this girl. You're going to see me again. And she walked off the airport. Well, as she walked off, it flipped over to another scene of Brady and Teresa getting off the airplane, where I think they either went to or were coming back from their son's school. And of course, when Teresa walks out, just as Gwen's walking out, Teresa walks in, and of course, what is the actress's name? Emily O'Brien is now, that was our first shot of her. She is playing the part of Teresa. She looked very good, and she lost her her accent that I could tell, but I can also tell you that the fans in all the rooms, they're not happy about this, and they don't like it. And I don't like it either, because I don't like Gwen, and I'm going to see her as Gwen, period. But, Alex was able to win me over, and generally I'm not easily won over. Just like Bonnie, I call her Adrian all the time. I don't care who she says she is. She's Adrian, she's Bonnie. I don't take her role that serious because of that. Now, Alex, I like him so much better than Ben, and I thought, okay, I can handle this, because I was starting to believe that he was Alex. But then they brought the Ben character back while Alex was still active, and I don't like that. And it just about turned me off Alex Ben altogether. But that's just me. I just don't follow actors and stuff around. I like all of them because they are in Salem, and it is a show that I watch. When they go outside Salem, I don't care what they do. I wish them the best, but I don't care what they do. Okay, the last thing that happened, I think I already told you that Chloe and Philip leave town. So they're both going off the show, of course. And I love them. I love them both. So the last thing that happened, and this was so sad, is Maggie took her spot back at Titan. She went and took Vivian's little nameplate, put it in the garbage, and put her nameplate there. And then in comes Alex, and he's got his little suitcase, his little briefcase. And as soon as you see him, you know what's happening here. They're going to be battling for who's going to run the company. So they talked for a few minutes about getting rid of Vivian, and she said, and I've taken my place back as CEO of Titan, and I'm back to work. And he said, oh, Maggie, I don't know how to tell you that, but I'm the new CEO of Titan. And she said, well, that's not true. Victor appointed me. He said, yes, but in the will, he leaves control of Titan to me. And she said, it's not true. I didn't see that. And he read the will to her, and it's the way it was worded. You would have just kind of looked over it. But he did say, controlling interest of Titan goes to my son. So, he told her he was taking over, and if she didn't want to leave, he would have her go through legal stuff, man. It was just so sad. So she took her little nameplate, and she took it home and set it up on the mantle in front of a picture of her and Alex. And it was very sad. But the very ending of it was Teresa, Gwen coming back as Teresa. So we will see how that rolls out this next week. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. We're going to be giving away Roku's to some of the older people. I haven't figured out exactly how I'm going to weed that out, but you have to be a subscriber. I might do it on a live that I'm doing. I might leave a hint in a video, but it's worth it to sign up. I've only got like 50 subscribers right now, so I wasn't going to start till I got 100 subscribers, but I can't seem to find my subscribers I had on my old channel. I only had like 220 anyway, but that was a lot for me. So anyway, subscribe if you like it. I'm doing the shorts every day now, updating the highlights of the day, and I decided to do the weekly covering. If you just want to sit down and see 1 week, bam, on the long videos. That's it. I've gone longer than I wanted to. I will see you all in Salem. Oh, and that's a wrap.